Yeah, got everybody, yeah.
Hallelujah.
Wow. We have to take a.
This must be
We have to
great
take a
partnership.
picture.
So everybody's got their shirts on except for staff. We don't have them.
That's all right.
Said we'll have to do roll
can't-
call, make sure we have a quorum.
Yeah.
I'm sure we do.
I don't question that at this point.
Mr. Colazo,
Present.
Mr. Lykoff,
Present.
Ms. Rosenbaum,
Present.
Mr. Seiler,
Oh, present.
Miss Seiler, Ms. Pelleput,
Present.
Ms. Moore, Ms. Tarko, Mr. Epstein.
Here.
Ms. Ogilvy,
Here.
Ms. Cosby,
Present.
Ms. McGill, Mr. Bell,
Here.
Chair Spencer.
I am here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. All right, next up on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did everyone receive the minutes by email?
Yes.
Yes. Pretty quick, they're here.
Yeah, I read through them.
I'll move to approve.
I
second.
With a motion on the floor, any room for discussions, errors, omissions, or correction?
Didn't notice anything.
From last, from last one?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I can't say, maybe. Whatever the last one was.
I see it was noted in here, so
Oh, that's right. You did have a correction.
I'd had a correction. Minutes.
Do we just be approved those minutes with the correction from the correction of the correction?
It was
Oh,
approved as amended.
See, that's all it is.
That's right. Nice to have legal in the house.
We got in-house counsel.
No objections heard. I'll move forward with all those in favor.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Again, thank you all for coming out on this rainy king tide night. And we'll start with Carl.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I do have some updates I would like to share. Of course, October 1st, Jazz Brunch will be taking place as usual the first Sunday of the month. Big Toy and Truck, which last year was one of our highest attended events. That's taking place at Holiday Park. So for those who don't know, that's where we have a lot of our city vehicles. It's more of a smaller kids kind of event where, you know, we've got the big fire trucks, all the neat police vehicles, or some of the neat police vehicles, park rangers, our vehicles, public works vehicles. So it's pretty fun for the younger kids.
You bring the horses out too.
We have had some, I'm not sure if we're doing that this year, but we've had that in the past.
How about the SWAT trucks?
SWAT trucks will be there, yeah.
What's the date on that?
That's October 7th. October 20th is Carter Park Jams at Carter Park. And as we kind of move through the latter part of the year, we've got our Halloween events, which is Lauterboo, that's taking place at Snyder Park on the 21st. And then we also have a Nightmare in the Park that's also at Snyder Park, and that is the following week.
Is that a drive-through haunted house?
That is a drive. Okay. Closing out the month of October, we have the Old School Reunion. That's at Carter Park. And as I kind of transition slightly here, I want to advise everyone that we're actually getting really close to having our first signature bond project completed, which is the Tunnel Top project.
Yes.
Yes, that's been an accomplishment.
Drive by it every day.
Drive by it once a week. And,
Really nice.
maybe by the end of October.
I'll be working on a ribbon cutting with some of our department leads, like transportation mobility, Riverwalk will also be assisting with that as well, and of course, it misses me at this point, but the DDA will also be a part of it as well. So I'll be sending out those details, or Stephanie will be sending out those details once we get those solidified. So be on the lookout for that.
And that's likely gonna be what, November?
My best guess would probably be December, but we'll probably have a date in November.
Do we know when the, that like stainless steel, huge conch structure is coming that somebody donated? I think it's come from Europe,
No,
but you know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I have no idea.
Okay.
Could go down to Key
Cool.
West.
What did they donate?
It's artwork, right?
It's a bit, it's a piece of public art.
Yeah, it's a
and,
public art.
That's nice.
Bonnie Barnett was
Oh,
able to
Bonnie did it.
secure it for the city. It's really cool looking in the pictures. I'm sure it's
It's a conch?
a conch and it looks like it's stainless steel. And it's huge. It's beautiful. I mean, well, I like
It's a
that.
large.
Really pretty.
Sounds like
It'll be a kind of an iconic thing. I just wondered, I'm very excited about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I could ask Josh, because I don't oversee public art anymore, so, but I can forward that. We can
That'd be good.
share that with the board.
When will
That'd
it
be
be
super
permanent,
cool.
or is it just a temporary moving?
So I understand it's a permanent, but
It's gonna live there.
Yeah.
And also like whoever is sending out like all these things that you just said about what the parks are doing and different things. I mean, I get an email with all those things on it. I mean, it's excellent. I hope everybody on the board is on that
I am getting it
list. I
too.
mean,
Yeah,
yes,
it's very
everybody
nice.
get that? Okay, because that's really, whoever does that, oh, it's Stephanie or who, but you know, thank you, because that's
Good.
excellent.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. Hope you'll get that.
It's a good summary.
It is a good summary.
Yeah.
I also think this is the first piece of art they're gonna buy, so you got a $5 million donation. This is the first piece they acquired, there should be more.
Can you identify yourself?
Sorry, actually, this is Commissioner Hertz.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize. I meant to introduce him.
That's all right, you can't do that.
By the way, when you send it all out, just make sure that you send that to former Mayor Jack Seiler. He's the one who came up with the idea for this entire park. I remember sitting down with him and it might have been required.
For the best ideas come always.
Carl, can I ask another question on? So I know the tunnel top opening, what about the actual tunnel? Like any?
That's done.
2020.
I know it's not really us. A lot of
That's done.
people like try to put them together as if it's a park thing, and it's really not, and I just want to be able to give.
So I don't have the details on that project. Yeah, it's
It's all
more of an
FDOT.
FDOT kind of thing.
It sounds like
But
it's another
I
year.
can find out.
It's gonna be mid-2025.
I think it's at least another year.
They
Yeah,
haven't even finished one side yet.
Isn't one side more complicated than the other?
No, it's just you close one side down, the 2 lanes, you know, you up to one side. So they haven't even finished one side. So it's been what, 18 months, 2 years on one
I'm
side.
used to it now.
Actually just drove through that today.
Stop. Don't even go there.
Yeah.
Wait till the season kicks in.
All right,
Wow.
The, back to the tunnel top. Christmas on Las Olas, I believe, is December 5th,
No, it's
No,
not.
it's
It's the
early.
end of November.
It's November 29th.
29th,
Same
Whatever that
whatever that
Tuesday
Tuesday.
is.
Tuesday before,
After Thanksgiving.
It's not.
28th, the 28th,
Yeah.
28th. Think it'll be open by then? Not official ribbon cutting, but
Oh,
actually
that would be nice.
Oh, you're referring to the tunnel top
tunnel top, yeah.
by the end of December?
End of November, after Thanksgiving, the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
At this juncture, I would probably say it probably would be done, but the ribbon cutting won't take.
No, but
No,
at least
But at least it's like all
the
the
safety
construction
aspect of
stuff,
it last year was just horrible with the Christmas on Las Olas. So it'd just be great if it was, you know, free of construction debris and you could actually walk through it and have.
All right, and then the last thing I want to mention in somewhat of a segue, if you will, but we issued a notice to proceed for 3 parks through the bond process, which is Fort Park, Bayview, and Riverside Park. We're looking to get those started with those renovations for those particular projects.
Nice.
To get this started, when I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Fort, Riverside, and Bayview, those bond renovation projects, we've just given out or issued the notices.
Okay.
And that's,
Questions for Carl?
All issued to one contractor?
I'd have to check, but I'm.
Which you heard, if you want to, and let's be curious, say anything.
Not really. So, no, I just wanted to be here because this is something we've been working on with AECom to talk about Lockhart Park. Obviously, we know this has been years in the making, and we were working on trying to get this so the commission can take a look at it. But we thought it was really important that we bring it to you guys first, give you an opportunity to take a look at it, provide your feedback. Hopefully, you like it. This is very similar to what was developed back in June of 2021. So this is not a new plan. The only real change to it was the addition of the pickleball courts, because we all know how important pickleball is to the future of our country. And got it in there. Some little tweaks to it, but hopefully you guys will like it as much as we did. So
There is a
Thank you.
meeting that goes by it for topic.
you know, that's every day of my life. I talk about pickleball.
So does Carl.
Any more questions for Carl, or we'll look forward to the
Looking forward to this Lockhart.
Joe? And so the floor is yours, because there is no voting.
Let's see here, I'm sure. Yeah, make presentation for me.
As Joe sets up the presentation, for those who don't know, Joe is from AECom and he's our program manager. His companies also did our master plan as well.
Yep.
So thank you. And Joe Webb, I'm sorry, Joe Sugar.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Yeah, I'm Joe Webb. I'm with the company AECom. Certainly a long history of working with the city. We really enjoy working here. I think I've been to this particular board years in the past and ongoing. I think I've met many of you virtually. You all look a lot smaller. I'm very happy to be here in person. Thank you for having us here today. Talk about Lockhart Park. Thank you for the introduction. A very important signature project. This project's been going on and off and on for a little while. It's gotten some new energy to push it forward and move it a little quicker here. Kind of a pretty picture of the entry. The rest of the park hopefully will be, to your left, looking equally as beautiful soon. So our agenda here, just real simply, going to talk a little bit about our site research that we've been doing, go through some of the big aspects of the conceptual plan. Commissioner mentioned, this isn't a radical derivation from previous iterations. It added pickleball, spent some little changes that we can talk about, but more about refinement of and of design ideas that I'll go through. The all important preliminary cost estimate. That is something we continue to work on and continue to try and refine as we do more research, get into things, trying to find and get it closer and closer. And then where do we go from here? To mention, under the commission and hopefully moving forward. Yeah, site research. There's my video. So we've been doing a whole series of things, environmental site assessment, ecological and environmental, and whether it's contaminated or whether there's creatures out there. We do have neighbors. That's a burrowing owl on the site. They usually are in pairs. Very cute, very nice, but in the middle of what will be the community center right now. So we will be responsible, and we've done this very successfully in the past, building them a new home and relocating them on the site. They're an asset. They're actually in the vicinity all around. There's a stormwater area nearby, and we noticed 4 or 5 of them in there in the park. So, what's that?
Can you go for tortoises?
No gopher tortoises. No. I had heard about that. We sent someone out there, but we did see the burrowing owls, and if you ever see them, they're really cute, so, and they're, kind of an asset, I think. It's a good nice nature. But we also did spend time and analyzing the traffic, utility extension, grading and drainage permit assessment. And I'll talk a little bit more about FAA flight zone evaluation. Everybody knows we're next to a stadium and at the end of the runway, we have a airport. Go to meeting controls. There we go. So this is a map of, we had an analyst go and we worked pretty extensively with the FAA on other projects. So we mapped out kind of the ceiling of area that we can work under. So if you're reading this map, it's from the end of the runway and it's a ramp up of how high we can go underneath and still maintain clear safety for the planes coming in and going out. It isn't a real active runway, so it isn't like it's constant traffic, but we certainly want to maintain safety. And then the sides, if you see the lines off the parallel of the actual runway, it ramps up quite quickly, so we actually get more room off to the sides than direct out the middle. All of our planning and everything has been, we have been anticipating this. We made very sure of the exact dimensions. So as we scale things like the building and the shade structures, even planting trees, everything was predicated on the idea that we need to stay safe and stay below. All the lighting in response to that will be dark. It's all FAA rules of making sure the safety is there, but also allowing us to really develop this beautiful asset. So conceptual site plan, you can see, some of the bigger elements, the community center. We have a large open play area that sports or that an event area. The pickleball, as the commissioner mentioned, we have some parking, overflow parking, a dog park, open lawn areas, splash pad. Lots of nice features, which I'll go through in a little more detail and some of the thematic rooms we've been looking at Commissioner's office and developing further, but really all in all about a 20-acre park, a real opportunity for an asset in a place where you don't just find 20 acres laying around in Fort Lauderdale and you know it's for it. So being able to, even though there are restrictions, even though there are challenges, a real opportunity to add a lot of open space in an area of the city that really needs. So very happy with that, but I'll get into it a little bit more later. So the building, fairly simple. What we emphasize with this couple of big points is flexibility. We want to be able to adapt between uses, whether that's morning versus afternoon, a weekday versus weekend, mornings versus evenings. So the building can continue to function in lots of different ways. If you look at some of the spaces indoor, we have an indoor play area, we saw for kids, that might have rubberized floors and mats and bounce things at one time that get moved into the storage and room set up differently. So trying to adapt that, really focused on kids, a workout room. And then number 4, this really multi-purpose room that can adapt from anything from community events to party space to, really a flexible space that we can simple amount of concessions would potentially be sold there, all prepackaged. And then really as conceptual, this idea that it's not the community center is more than just the building, it's the space around it. So having this free flow of spaces visually and from a circulation standpoint where the building opens up to a big porch area into the surrounding park so that it's an asset in the park for not just building, but for the whole vicinity. We'll also be adding a park restroom and a maintenance building that was somewhat of a late addition and I think necessary, but the concept with restrooms, as we've been doing with many Fort Lauderdale parks, is they'll be individual unisex, so that it's no longer men, women, it can be flexible either. Sometimes that's got multiple benefits to it. I think that makes it much fairer, that with, it's equal to everyone, be able to go in, use them whenever it's over their place. So certainly the maintenance building, I think will help to make sure that the park is well taken care of. Wait here, all of that. There we go. So conceptually, at least from a design standpoint, we tried to borrow, we have a great big facility out there, stadium right next door to us. We didn't look to copy that, but we kind of that monolithic modern look. It's actually a relatively simple, inexpensive design in that it doesn't have a lot of complicated or frill, but a lot of what we think is dramatic space. Being able to have a large overhang, well shaded. This part, this is like looking from the northeast corner into the site. So if you were driving into the parking lot, driving to the drop off, that's what you would see. I'll show some other images, but a couple of the features again, this big lawn area with glass out to the north side so that you can be in the space. We're big on having drop offs. We really try and encourage people or see the future that not everybody will arrive by a single occupant vehicle. Encouraging the ride share or drop off or making safe transfer of people in a covered situation is part of our typical designs. Click to a few more of these. So if you're looking due south, standing to the north of it, that's definitely have an appearance to strong kind of dramatic kind of strength on the site. The stadium building is again kind of very large monolithic pieces. I think this makes a statement and it's relatively simple. It's not an overly expensive design, but still I think makes a statement on the site. Again, just a few more images.
Joe, I have a quick question. The community center, is it planning on being used like in conjunction with the games that are going on at the stadium or completely isolated, or is that still up in the air?
I think that's still up in the air. I think the desire, and I don't want to speak for a community, but the desire is to at least maintain the integrity of the park function and not become subservient to the game function.
Got it.
So I don't think that would preclude, correct me, I mean, if you'd like that, that wouldn't preclude that there would be cooperative things that would go on. But every time there's a game, we don't want to have people of the community not have use of it.
Exactly.
I think the biggest part of that is going to be control of the parking lot. People thinking, oh, wow, look, free parking within walking distance of the stadium.
Exactly.
Certainly if we need restrooms or the park is open and there's games going on. We have a symbiotic relationship. We're immediately adjacent. There's got to be ways to work together, but one shouldn't be subservient to the other. There's a lot of discussion about how to manage the parking and control and use park first as a park.
Makes sense to keep it independent.
So that certainly is it, but other features, a splash play area, we'll call it roll along. So not just as, it's currently Drive Pink Stadium, but whole legacy of sports on this site, baseball, football, others. So kind of a thematic thing of a splash play area. By splash play, it's typically fountains that the water doesn't collect any depth. So it'd be open all the time. It would be kids can play, but kind of in this theme where balls and play and other things. And this is immediately adjacent to the community center. So that in conjunction with porch area kind of forms a place. Thanks. And then a playground, again, playing off of the theme of being on a runway and at the end of the runway and the airport activities that go on out there, long rolling kind of track rides and balloons and these features of kind of the aeronautical theme or the airplane, you like this thing? So just playing off that theme, when we design playgrounds, it's not just about pretty and, what we think looks cool. There's actually a real cognitive idea, there's real intent in fine motor skills, gross motor skills, early childhood development. So it's orchestrated play. It's intended to also help children kind of grow, explore, develop, kind of the learning process. Everything that we do is universal. I don't like to say ADA, that's a law. What we embrace is that whatever a child or a person's abilities are, are fully able to use everything that's even like community center, there are no steps. You will be able to enter, whether you're walking, you have a walker, or you're in a wheelchair. It's just a principle of design that we try to do, certainly in the playground also. But it's fun looking too. We've worked on a lot of these, and you see their logo in the corner, or our friends from Curtis and Rogers have developed a lot of these really creative landscape architects that have helped us some of the, what I say, thematic kind of development of the park playground splash pad. I hope to be here, but got to give credit where credit is due, that they really helped us in developing some of these ideas. And the dog park, I mean, we see small dog, large dog, kind of set in amongst the trees. There are shade structures in there. We understand trees, day one will provide the shade. Number one thing I hear about dog parks is not enough shade. Certainly a dog wash area, drinking fountains, clean up areas, but kind of segregating the smaller dogs and larger dogs. And what I'd say a very park-like atmosphere, lots of trees, lots of kind of that feeling of being away and in a seclusion, able to play with your dog. There's a walkway around them. A lot of people like to come out, kind of walk around the outside. You can let your dog off the leash, but you don't want to stand there. It's really, and sometimes we say, and this is a part of me coming out, that it's not really a dog park, it's a dog owner's park. There's as much of the socialization of people that go to them as the dogs having fun. People are out there, and usually dog people really like dog people, and so there's also playing off of that socialization and kind of the friendly Tuesday morning Shelby's club, the after work crowd, the others. It can be kind of an interesting dynamic out there sometimes. But there's, of course, the dogs having fun. But again, there's also, we have the indoor workout area. There's also an outdoor one that is kind of themed more towards more casual use. This together with kind of the concept of having a perimeter walkway, whether that's measured or at least counted so that people can understand how far they're walking. That there is a contiguous walkway all the way around. This facility would incorporate into that. So a lot of people like come out, warm up, kind of get some of their stretching, get some of their workout in, walk the whole area or run the whole area, come back to this area, work out more. But I think we've got a lot of great concepts on how that can work together with not just the play fields, but also the perimeter walkway and other features in the park that can really add to enjoyment and health and wellness. Yeah.
The walkways, are they gonna be like a mulch or pea gravel rather than cement?
That's a good question. Currently, they're concrete. We know for the real runners, for turf next to them.
Even us old walkers or like that?
I can't run it because I can't run on concrete. That's from running on concrete too much, I can tell you that. I think that's something of consideration. Sometimes we try and accommodate immediately adjacent. Tried the peat gravel, I've tried the others, but sometimes maintaining grass, as a real
What
runner.
that spongy stuff?
Yeah, like the sponge in the fair.
I don't know. I mean, I know it's like to walk on, I know what it's like to do it, take care of it.
Time maintenance, if I remember.
Yeah, I like
Doesn't
them
allow
when they're brand new. Things in South Florida very quickly degrade and sometimes be almost, within a few years, it's really a challenge, especially if you've lots of salt in the air. I love the idea. I don't know about it in practice simply because but I know your intent. It needs to be soft. We've tried this on other trail projects in other places, you know, it's really hard sometimes, and then they real quickly get divots in them. It's almost a tripping hazard, and it's really hard to get back off.
Okay, I mean, just as somebody, I mean, I was, ran in marathons and things like that, and, destroyed my feet. So I can't run on concrete or really walk a lot on concrete. So like for somebody like me, and maybe I'm the only one in Fort Lauderdale, if it's concrete, I won't come up. So I won't use that one. I'll go to Holiday Park. Hopefully they don't make their cement. I think that's mostly, molten pea gravel
Yes,
now.
Yeah. And I'm with you, I mean,
Yeah.
because of running too much on concrete, I've got.
I just
all
went
the-
Commissioner
all the
first,
effects of
so.
My knees and back. And
My knees are shot too, so.
So see, you need mulcher pea gravel.
And we, I mean, just asking, I mean, usually for me, the grass next. Because I've used the pea gravel and sometimes it's very uneven, or hard to maintain.
Just walk on the grass, Mary.
Clean surface.
It's not, trust me, it sounds like it would work, but it doesn't really, but
It's
that's
bumpy.
okay. I don't, that's just me.
Well, it's very valid, very valid point. I know concrete is a challenge. You know, I'm not opposed to the idea that we might consider asphalt is, even better than concrete.
Yeah, true.
And maybe there are portions that could be, if we prefer the concrete because it's easier to maintain. We also like, and it's just the principle of design. I don't like the users to come in conflict with the maintenance. So sometimes we try not to have the maintenance vehicles drive on all of the other use areas, right? So we try and make a continuous place that they can pick up trash and do their work without having to drive all over the lawn. So I think we can consider that, we can talk more about it, the cost differential is a little bit, but not close to that.
Okay, that's being part of holiday parks.
I think you have some of each, yeah, and it's the count, I mean, it seems like they're both hard, hit them with a hand, you'll notice the difference.
I know, I noticed using it,
Big difference between concrete and asphalt. So, the asphalt is, a little more to maintain. Maybe it's some combination along the street concrete, along the perimeter. It could be, but I'm open to that. It's very, I hear that question.
Part of the challenge with that too, by the way, is just for those of you who are not familiar, there's an obligation on the part of Van Deckham to pay for certain components of Lockhart Park in return for getting 40 acres of our land up there for $1 a year for the next 50 years. So their singular obligation is to build the park. So one of the components they're responsible for are trails. So if we integrate more expensive options into it, we're already getting pushback from Miami Beckham in totality on the park. In fact, they'd like us to pay for all of it. They don't want to pay for anything. So introducing more expensive options is just going to increase the pushback we get from them. We may price it out one way and then look at options to do it another way, where the city would then have to pick up that differential. It's just one of the other wrinkles to the conversation. Just we're not technically paying for this piece.
Wasn't there out their agreement initially that they were gonna take care of the park?
They were supposed to build the park.
Right. And then they decided
We should be in the park.
we should be in the park. And the fact that they're giving us pushback is.
This part.
Very
Okay,
much so.
thank you. I didn't mean to take up that much time. Bad feet.
In other words, we fulfill our part.
Things, have you hear about these, like the pickleball and the fitness area and the fitness center and community center and the playground, like have you talked to them recently about these?
It's generally a commercial area. I mean, it's right next to an airport.
Great.
It's a lot of homes. There's a
Yeah,
big
I
neighborhood
don't,
over
I
there.
think the closest neighborhood is 2 miles.
No, it's not. It's right across the street.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
And we did initially.
they're
but
behind Kaiser.
Yeah.
I don't know, have you visited them with, I don't know, they don't care about the
The net.
pickleball or not. That's only a
Commercial.
change.
Commercial.
So where it faces commercial
Right.
and then across the street behind Kaiser.
There's.
One at a time, please.
Certainly education at programmatic level of what kinds of things should we build here, that was based on a lot of community input. Now, the only change that since then was the pickleball, and I think a lot of people kind of evolved to, that's a real need out there. I don't question that. I hear pickleball is a crisis. Couple things, crisis.
Good, bad and ugly.
You know, I get everything.
I know we have the
that
housing
is-
crisis, we don't, we have a pickleball crisis.
Yeah, real crisis. So, you know, definitely in our approach, always get the master was input at that point, there were multiple meetings with previous commissioner and even going forward, where people have talked to us, but I wouldn't say we have in the last 6 months. We've tried to get out of the programmatic concept and schematic and build it. That wouldn't preclude parts evolve over time. But
It's a valid question she raised there, because I heard the initial planning was
That's
this
what that.
community center was gonna be designated esports gaming area. It was also gonna have a pool, we're gonna have different things, so a lot of that's obviously changed. The question is, has the community been involved in the process, change process?
Let me jump in on this. So the plan you're looking at is the plan that was formulated in June of 2021. This is a 2-year-old plan. So this is the culmination of all the community outreach that was already done by my predecessor with everybody. Again, the only change that you're seeing between June of 2021 and today is a substitution of pickleball. We had 3 multi-purpose fields, smaller one and 2 larger ones. So we simply took one of the larger multi-purpose fields and we put the pickleball courts in there. And again, that was done at my request. There was not a community outreach on that one. But again, this came out shortly after Snyder Park. So we had huge, hundreds of people show up to City Hall to talk about pickleball for Snyder. And one of the most important things about this particular location that's kind of distinct from every other park that we have in the city is it's in the middle of an industrial area. Right? So I do have residential neighborhoods around. I've got Palm Air Village, East, West, I've got Twin Lakes, but I have nothing immediately. There's nobody walking to this park. It's not a walking park. It's not a neighborhood park. So this is a park that you're gonna have to drive to if you want to visit the park. So the conversations I've had when I talk with everybody involved with this is what is going to make people get in their car and drive here. And it's got to be a destination type activity. Now, so we have, for example, the splash pad, right? So there's 2 splash pads that I've taken my daughter to. One's down in Hollywood on Boardwalk, and the other one is up in West Palm, in the downtown area of by Clement Street. Okay, so people will go to that. Let the kids play there. It's an activity that you'll bring your children to. Pickleball, I've had people telling me that they'll drive an hour to get to a pickleball. They're driving down from Palm Beach County. I mean, they will drive across the county to get to pickleball. So it's something that I think we can put in there that will activate this almost like nothing else. The community center is going to be big again for Palm Air Village, East and West and Twin Lakes to be able to utilize that. But I think the pickleball courts are going to bring people there. I think the multi-purpose fields will bring people there. Dog parks, I know people, I used to take my dog over to Big Park, this Holiday Park. But I know before that, going down to Snyder Park, again, you have to be able to access that. People will put their dog in a car and go drive. So it's creating those types of amenities that will bring people into this area so that it stays active. As people stay engaged with it and we make it successful. So that's kind of the goal that we have there.
Another activity that I see missing that would be a draw would be a basketball court. So I don't know if that can be added or considered.
One of the things that I'd like to do, and I had this conversation with somebody else very recently, a lot of the pushback that we've gotten when I built and sat down at the table with Miami Beckham is they blame us for dragging our feet because we kept changing plans. So what I'm trying to tell everybody right now is let's get this built and then we could always substitute things later on. But I don't want to slow this down. We're at 30% design. I want to get this to the point where we can put this out to bid as quickly as possible, get it built. I am open to coming back and adding, we've got a lot of open space in here that we can do some other things on down the road. So the answer is yes. I just don't want to slow this down at this point. I don't want to start changing anything in the design if we can possibly. Because I had somebody approach me about actually 2 other folks approached me about some other things that they would like to do on the park. I told them the same thing. I'm like, please let me just get it built and get it open and get some people in there. And then we can talk about any additions that we think would bring more people to the area.
Yeah, and real quick, one other thing I want to mention is that, so the pickleball courts themselves, the idea is that they're shaded. You know,
Yeah.
Mr. Webb and I, we've had a couple of conversations with some lighting and things of that nature to deal with, but although we have spot shading in some of our other facilities, like Holiday, this would be the one that has, the thought is to have a real shading element. So that's also something that, you know, people can come in early in the day, late at night, have some coverage there.
Shaded and lit.
Yep.
And I think that's gonna be a huge impact, because there are pickleball courts and everything, and you know, some of the people, I mean, it's a real challenge when it's really hot.
There's gonna be
You
a
have
line out,
shade structure that
there's
lets
gonna be a line out the door for those pickleball courts.
and you know, the pickleball is another one that I'd say is very social. You know, when you see people and even if you have a big crowd of them like this, people tend to turn out, hang out, you know, interact.
It's a whole day long activity.
It's fun. So having the shade around it, having the shade restroom nearby, the shade over the courts, I think it really helps to make this a destination.
Again, I apologize, one second, I don't want to echo on that. So you got, again, down the road, you got paddleball courts down there. So if you've ever gone down and watched the paddleball players, they're there all day. They show up with coolers and chairs, and it's a socializing event for them. As much as it is people actually playing paddleball, it really is. Every Saturday, they're there all day long. You got the Saturday group and you got the Sunday group. You know, they just, so, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just want to be asked a question about the pickleball courts. Some of the pickleball courts have been taken over by tournaments. And they show up, they take over the pickleball courts for the whole day, and other people can't get in to play pickleball. I just want to make sure that there's not going to happen, especially when you've got such a nice facility going to be built.
Yeah.
So pickleball courts in Fort Lauderdale, there shouldn't be tournaments. We've only had.
There's some pop-up tournaments that show up that
Yeah.
end up blocking out the pickleball courts for the whole day.
They're not allowed to do.
They're not allowed to do that.
Yeah,
I know
so-
they're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, so we've got Sunrise Middle School, which we have had, I want to say maybe 2 tournaments. And Holiday, I think we've had 2 tournaments. Outside of that, those would be unauthorized. And if they're unauthorized, my office would need to know, or we'll call the Rangers. So we can have a-
And we shouldn't be sending them all down to Snyder. Because that's built for. tournaments.
Right.
That's the whole point of it.
But that's kind of what I asked about. Remember last month, I asked about like the
Etiquette.
rules of pickleball.
The
and-
etiquette.
And they basically said it's self-policing. So
Yeah.
you need to be either like telling people or calling them and sending a park ranger.
Yeah.
I remember for baseball, you had to have a permit in order to play at the field. You couldn't
Yeah,
just do
you do.
pickup games at Holiday Park. Permits, kept the gates locked and everything like that.
There's one thing too that I think is somewhat unique about the site is if you go up there now, if any of you have ever been up there, this thing is completely bare. There's not a tree, not a bush, not a shrub. So that's good and that's bad. I mean, it gives us a blank slate for them to design on, but it also means that it's gonna take us a while to get a robust tree canopy out there. You know, this is not, again, like Holiday Park where you've got, you know, some really great old mature trees in there. It's gonna, that's gonna be a little bit of a challenge for us. That's why the shade structure is so important. Because we have no shade up there.
But I'm glad the canopy is coming back.
Yeah.
trees is what we need.
And hopefully the trees develop, but in the meantime, yeah.
So all the green area is grass, not turf, right? Or- And other than the courts, obviously, but like, there's a lot of green. Green space and like actual grass.
What we're calling the open, all the rest of it is grass. So, you know, the actual play area could be turf, and then, yeah, there's lots of green, lots of shrubs, lots of trees that the commissioner referred to. And the plan is very, very green. It's going to be a challenge, and like, you know, we've done soil borings, we've gone out there. It's harder than we first imagined. So,
Growing and maintaining.
yeah, it's just solid pavement.
Been using parking for a long time, back when we had the proper stadium up there and the Yankee Stadium and the Orioles Stadium. So that area's been used for parking for a long time. It's very well connected.
Very, 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 and recently, I mean, one of the site discovery things was, you know, there was some topsoil and they just put 3/4 inch stone over the top of it, and like that gravel mixed with topsoil.
That's not recent, we were just talking about that actually, 'cause I don't remember all that stone. there.
Yeah, And so now I got a mess.
So I just walked the site earlier this week, and so, yeah.
We did a few weeks ago and our people are like, oh my God, you know, now, so.
I think someone just
This is
dumped
part of the
some rock
research,
out there.
part of the
Who did
design
that?
development, right?
I think whoever might be using it for parking may have decided to make it not parking.
Whoever they are.
Yeah.
Whoever those soccer
Strange way to do something. So
Like
we're
something.
trying to get there.
One more quick question, the shading for the pickleball, I know it's sun shaded, is it water shaded for rain as well? Because, I mean, if it's anything, if we keep having these summers like this, it's like every single day. it's
It
just
isn't
day.
currently, that doesn't mean it can, the thing that I'll say is, you know, intentionally, this one, the one image we're showing here. They can, if I get too much,
Yeah.
it's extremely hot. It's like a little oven in there.
Right.
So we're kind of trying to make it partially open, just to let.
You need to
the
get some
escape.
trees in there.
So it's kind of a
Yeah,
trade-off of a little bit of rain versus a bend to some of them that are completely covered. And if there's not a lot of wind, I mean, it's almost. Hard stuff.
And honestly, a lot of people, like, at least at George English and Holiday, like, we'll play through the rain, we just don't play through lightning and thunder.
Yeah, you have to kick them out for
Like,
lightning.
We
We were there.
we
that
play
one
through
time.
the rain for the most part, but yeah.
Ranger was screaming at him, it's lightning, get off.
Still
Well directed.
I think pickleball's a lot like golf now, you know? I'm out here.
You're not
I
leaving.
finally got the court, I'm not giving up.
It's like
It's definitely the thing, and I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying, I was sitting in
Really?
a commission meeting and it was at least 25 people that have spoken to this crisis. Thinking, I should just make it green. So I'll go on. Here's where this, and this is preliminary. This is something, as I mentioned, we are feverishly working on updating. This was our initial cost estimate. So everybody understands this will be updated. And I'm looking over to my right here. And then, some of that site discovery and some of the things that we learned, a couple of the tweaks we made, this will probably be different. I mean, this is where I have had teams of people working night and day last weeks to try and refine every last pipe, every last blade of grass, every shrub counted to the cost estimate. So it might be a little different. So nobody's surprised.
Hopefully this goes on the Miami Beckham part of the ledger, not us, because as they see that we're basically half and half, pretty much half and half between the city and Beckham.
Yeah.
About 13.3
Yeah, I
million
figured
that right now, that would be close to us, but yeah.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be a little more just to.
So let's.
Are we gonna be involved in a piece of the fire for this? I mean, these were the
So
initial
that'll
expectations.
be, so we have a mediation session that'll be coming up with them. Probably end of October, so that's why I really want to get this kind of wrapped up in October, that's why I want to get, that's why I need to get the plans finalized and in front of the commission so that they can approve 30% design. And then I need to sit down with them during mediation and see what we're gonna be talking about.
So
So
this voluntary mediation or is there a lawsuit?
this is voluntary mediation. We agreed to this in lieu of litigation.
Let's say free litigation.
Free litigation, right? Former Mayor Jack Sauer.
You just can't get away from your dad.
This will be adjustment.
Like,
This will be adjusted. Try to be really careful of what we assign to Miami Beckham versus the city. Being cognizant of, you know, the obligations on both sides. The site does have some challenges, there's no question. I mean, I'm sure that that will be contested, that this will be slightly different. And we're really trying to just get to the point where move ahead. You know,
You get a shovel.
escalation is killing us.
Yeah, I get
You
it.
know, construction costs have gone up so much, the original concepts, and every time we wait. You're really losing 15% per year. So get shovel in the ground, get it built. So, is kind of the impetus now. You can talk about it for 3 more years and you're. You could have a hard time. So the schedule, we're here today with all of you to discuss this plan, go over things. We share the commissioner seal and moving ahead. If with this group's concurrence, we have the commission on the third, and then really wrap things up. We have to tie a bow on it and cross the T's and dot the I's and submit it according to the city's conditions and rules, but that's 30% plans with a full cost estimate that's broken down, ad nauseum, so that commissioner can continue this discussion and hopefully have the closure and move ahead. So
Just one question while we're on that point about the process. The city commission has to sign off on it first, and then Miami Beckham steps up to pitch in, or is it vice versa? Do they have to approve it and then the city signs off on it?
So we still have to set dates for mediation. I'm traveling from much of October, so it's going to be the November, December timeframe. So again, I've talked to Mayor Silo, setting some dates. We've got something tentative on for beginning of December. So I'm sorry, so your question, so yes.
It's just the process. We're
Yeah,
trying to
no, absolutely.
understand, like, Miami already agreed, they have the property, they're using it. So do we need their approval at this point, or?
So the answer is no. The way the comprehensive agreement was structured, we did need their approval. So the original agreement was that the design of the park must be mutually agreed upon. That obligation ended in July when they failed to build the park. So there was an obligation to build the park last year. We extended that by a year. The deadline has passed. They're now in default on that particular provision of the comprehensive agreement. Our only remedy under the agreement is that we can build the park ourselves and simply bill them back for the cost of what they're required to do. So at this point, their opportunity to participate in the design and construction of the park component has ceased. They're in default under that aspect. They would argue that they're not, because they're going to blame us for the delay, but the agreement does treat that, so after this,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're listening in. And I got my characterization of the process, but that's kind of where we are right now. So really what we're going to be arguing about is how much they want to pay towards the construction. They think our numbers are inflated and they don't feel that it reflects their financial obligation. They're also still insisting that we owe them $6 million towards the cost of the demolition of the existing structures that were on site, even though that was outside of the agreement. There's nothing in the agreement, but the agreement specifically says that they're responsible for the demolition. So, so these are all the things that we'll be discussing during mediation.
What are the issues that
I'm sorry,
what are the issues?
are we going to contribute anything towards the cost of demolition, even though the contract says we don't have to? And whether they're gonna pay the full price of what we determined to be the cost of the improvements that the comprehensive agreement provides for.
Aren't they responsible for
Yeah.
Are they responsible for the full price?
Because when we negotiated the comprehensive agreement, there were certain features that were spelled out, and there was a conceptual site plan that's attached. And so the things that you see with their name next to it is what the contract that we have with them spelled out. The other amenities, like the facility center and so forth, were things that came out of Commissioner Moritas's meeting with the neighborhoods about what else we might want to see out there. And to your point, there were a number of things that were thrown out. We had a discussion about a two-story building in the east. Concerned about the two-story building is it's in that flight path. So we're really sure if the FAA was ever going to approve that. Esports is an idea that, may have had merit, may not have had merit. There was, I just had a conversation with a gentleman. I said that I've had two people reach out to me recently that wants to do a skate park there. So there's a lot of folks with a lot of ideas about what they might want to see in there. We just don't know if any of these individual proposals have enough support, that will attract enough folks to use it to make it worthwhile to justify the expense going into it. But that's kind of how we got there. Is we knew we wanted certain things: walking trails, multi-purpose fields, things of that nature, and playground and so forth. So those were all covered under the initial.
I just have a question. Say, you not answer, but I'm just wondering, is like, I know that they're building a Freedom Park down in my.
Yep.
If they go ahead with that, does that impact?
It shouldn't, because that was always the plan. So the plan for Dry King Stadium was as a couple of things. One, it's their corporate offices. It's also a training facility, and it was a temporary facility for the team to play. What I understand that they're looking at, and what I expect that they will probably do, is after Freedom Park is built, they will relocate the team down there. And there's been discussions about bringing women's soccer to Fort Lauderdale. So I fully expect that that stadium will probably become the women's soccer facility. And in that respect, it actually works pretty well, because women's soccer doesn't attract quite the same crowd that Messi attracts. So it should probably be better suited to the amount of available parking that we have. So that's a roughly 17,000 seat stadium. They should have had 4,900 parking spaces to go along with it under our ULDR. They came back and they got a parking reduction based on the fact that they said people are going to take Brightline up, and we've got all these businesses in the neighborhood, and we're going to park there after hours. Because that's how they do it down in Miami. So if you go down to Marlin Stadium, people park at the local businesses and pay $10 to park their car, and they, then walk to the stadium. So they were planning on doing that. It just proved to be easier for them to park at the park than to negotiate those agreements. And so that's what they've been doing. They've got 983 parking spaces, I believe, on their site, which is not enough for, the number of folks that come to the game. But I think, I don't know what the attendance is going to be if they do soccer there. I don't know that they're going to sell out and need, all the space that they have right now. So I think in the long term, I think it will work for their needs. And certainly they spent, 165 million building the stadium. They're not going to walk away from it. It's just a matter of how they repurpose it.
Well, Commissioner, I encourage you to keep pushing to make sure that we're not on the hook for more than we need to be. That's a
Absolutely.
really
So,
sweet
no,
deal,
I'm-
and they need to own it to it.
You can bet that I am going to be reluctant to give up very much of anything. I believe that we've got a contract that covers everything. And as I said, I believe in sticking to the four corners of the contract. I've never asked them to pay for one thing that's not in the contract, not once, not ever. All I've asked them to do is honor their obligation to the community, to the city, and I'm doing my best to hold them to that. I will say, though, the reason we go to mediation in general is because trials are always iffy and they're expensive. So, you have attorneys, and attorneys' costs can get very expensive. We spend, on some of our litigation, we spend millions. And so, the idea is we want to get this done, wrap it up. And I go into it with an open mind. I mean, that's the whole point of mediation. You go in there with an open mind, see what they propose, and see if it's anything that makes sense for the city. Understanding that if we have to fund any of those demolition costs based on a representation by a prior city employee that didn't have the authority to bind the city, that's got to come out of our general fund. Okay, that means there's something else we're not going to be doing. That's a police station that, that maybe gets, something cut out of it, or it's a fire station that doesn't get done, or something like that. That's the general fund that funds general city operations. And so, when it comes to giving that up, I'm going to be hard pressed to say that that makes sense. Turning over city tax dollars after we've given over 40 acres of some of the most valuable land that we have in the city of Fort Lauderdale. That's airport property. That has a high dollar value. So, but again, all that comes out of mediation. Again, I go into it just like I did the last round. So we went through one round of mediation and we both walked away from it because we weren't able to get to resolution. So we walked away, but we've agreed to come back to the table again and try a second time. I told him, I said, I'll keep coming back as long as it takes. I'm open to resolution of the problem. I'd rather negotiate than litigate.
Thank you.
Just generally, like setting aside the cost estimate of who's responsible, I think I've been on this board 5 years, maybe 6. We've been talking about this a really long time, right? And this is spot on. We're looking for a destination park for that neighborhood, for that area, for that space. Yes, some tweaks, the pickleball, things like that, but I really do think that this is now spot on. So I move it forward to commission if
I would
move
agree.
forward.
Is this something we actually need to vote on?
Yeah.
Just have one more.
I would second Mariana's,
I do have one question, and I don't know if it's for the commissioner or Joe or maybe Carl, but one thing that was on the initial plans as a former Flying L alumni, what happened to the other satellite courts in the football field that Lauderdale?
That stays there, so they're obligated to,
It's
so.
not there now though, right?
No, they built,
Oh, they did
they
build
built fields in the back, and so we have,
Okay.
I believe it's 24,
Okay.
24 games.
Yeah.
On the fields, and one of the things that I've been talking to them about, because it's come to my attention, I didn't realize this until I went and looked at it, we had 3,000 seats in the old Lockhart Stadium.
Yeah,
They've got about 1,500 seats now out there. So
Yeah.
one of the things that we've been talking about as part of the mediation discussions. And I told them, I said, look, guys, I said, this isn't for my district, by the way, okay, because this is Stranahan and Fort Lauderdale High School. It's not my high school that's playing there. I said, but you took down a 3,000 seat stadium. I said, I'd like to see a 3,000 seat facility back there, and we need a concession, we need an announcer's booth, we need a sound system. I said, these are some of the things that if you're gonna ask me to participate in some of the costs, what I'd like you to do is participate in some of the things that benefit the kids in the city. And they said, again, you're talking District 3 and District 4, not for my district, but for the city. So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on trying to get them to step up. I sat down with Jorge Mas, and, he's told me about his commitment to working with kids and sports and everything else. I'm like, great. I said, so let's do something over there for them.
good. I just want to make sure they don't get cut off, because I don't know, I didn't see it in here. I just
No,
thought.
and I think there's.
They're not staying.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think there's a willingness to entertain,
Yeah.
enhancements to the playing field area.
okay, good.
And we also get 4 uses out of the main stadium a year, so,
Concert.
so we're looking at what events we want to do out of those 4 uses.
Yeah. Got it.
all right.
There was a motion. We have a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion?
Patricia, I actually have a question. Is it possible that this motion will be used in mediation?
Well,
Because then I shouldn't make it. And I probably shouldn't vote.
Then I'll make the motion.
wait, I'm sorry. Do you have a conflict?
Well, he's my dad.
Oh.
That guy, but
Okay.
I'll take it off.
Yeah, like
No.
if you're gonna use this motion in the mediation,
No,
then
I
I'm
can't,
abstaining.
I would.
I can't confirm that the
Yeah.
commissioner will not
Right.
use a mediation, but I didn't know that, Mr. Seiler.
Yeah, go ahead and withdraw.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I'm-
I would advise you to even
Yeah, no, I
abstain
got it.
from voting.
So I'm
Alright, so
withdrawing my motion.
Okay,
I move.
I didn't know.
I move that we go forward with this project.
I second it.
Okay, wait.
We're approving the plans as they are, is that what we're saying?
Right.
Yeah, no, this is what I'm moving for.
You're moving, I'm sorry, just to
I am
clarify.
moving for what
The
we.
plan- the plans as presented.
As presented.
Okay, thank you.
And I second.
And now discussion.
Charlie.
Yeah,
Charlie
he does.
seconded.
Deborah first, Charlie second.
Make the motion.
To be clear.
Now we have a motion on the floor.
And do you have any further?
That's what I said. Any further discussion? None heard. Take a roll call.
Carla?
Mr. Colazo,
Approve?
Mr. Lightfoot,
Approved.
Ms. Rosenbaum. Approved. Ms. Tyler.
I abstain.
She's abstaining due to.
Legal.
Fill out a form. She's abstained because of conflict of interest.
Right, she has a conflict because her dad is heading the mediation.
Form that we need to present. No.
Do we have something for?
No.
Okay, no.
Ms. Pelican.
Yes.
Ms. Moore. Yes. Sarko. Mr. Eckstein.
Yes.
Ms. Oglesby.
Yes.
Ms. Cochi.
Yes.
Mr. Bella. Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Gunter.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, let's vote.
Everybody.
Pass.
Can we just clarify who seconded because Stephanie did not hear? Okay.
Well, I had a second right by me. Yeah.
Charlie's fine.
Okay.
First by Deborah, second by Charlie.
It was moved. It was moved. Okay.
No, but you would.
I'm good, I figured it out.
Take some bits.
I want to say thank you, everybody. I appreciate this.
Thank you.
Put together
Have a good night.
things that, as you know, it's been a long time coming, and I made this a centerpiece of my campaign, that I was gonna get this park built over my dead body. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Let us know if there's anything
Have a
we
great
can
day.
do.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you for. Can we do, and how do we? communicate this to the commission?
What?
How do we communicate this to the commission?
So.
That is
I
it,
am,
right?
I'm sure that he's gonna go to the
Yeah,
commission.
so
Okay.
this is actually on the upcoming commission agenda. Bill's gonna be providing, Mr. Webb's gonna be providing a presentation similar to this.
Okay,
The minutes will be done prior to the meeting and will be shared with the commission.
yeah, I just want to make sure, because one time we approved something, I don't even remember what, it was when I first started. And it was just so inconsequential that we all voted for whatever it was, that it was like they didn't even really hear us.
Well,
I
Oh,
don't
they
know.
take it under advisement.
They can
Yeah.
completely reverse.
They can, but I want them to really realize it was
Well,
a unanimous vote.
Staff is gonna, I'm sorry to cut you off,
That's okay.
but staff is gonna prepare an agenda a
Okay.
memo, and then within the memo, it's gonna explain how this was presented to the board and you
Okay.
approve the recommendation.
That sounds good. That's not what happened
Happened.
a long time ago. None of you. were here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mission accomplished.
Mayor treated like a-
More things to come, but very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
For our own entertainment.
There was one.
Wonder why.
There was something.
Oh, yeah, there.
Advisory board.
I ran out of things on my agenda.
Oh,
Wait,
Yeah.
I'd like to open up if there's any discussion, new business to the board.
Please, no iguanas.
But beyond that.
I move to adjourn.
I second. I second. Good night.
Good night.
Like a fire in my yard the other day.
No.